She isn't driven by the pursuit of self-assurance. She doesn't dedicate her efforts to acquiring charm, and she certainly isn't focused on enhancing her physical appearance. Instead, her pursuit is directed towards something profoundly intrinsic, an intangible quality beyond the scope of verbal articulation, a profound resonance that speaks a forgotten dialect within her very neurological framework. This elusive quality is impossible to simulate. It cannot be acquired through financial transactions, and any attempt to manipulate its inherent nature will inevitably result in her swift, silent disappearance before you even register her departure. Carl Jung coined this intricate interplay the thema dance. He described it as a profound psychic interaction unfolding between the masculine and feminine principles, yet fundamentally transcends the confines of spoken language. Its manifestation occurs through an intricate exchange of emotional frequencies. Regrettably, the majority of individuals, particularly men, seldom master the ability to access this profound connection because her attraction is not predicated on superficial behaviors. It is rooted in an authentic emotional reality. This is precisely where the situation becomes precarious. Because without a foundational comprehension of this dynamic, you will misinterpret her withdrawal as a loss of interest. Consequently, you will overcompensate for this perceived deficit. You will intensify your pursuit with greater fervor. And in doing so, you will inadvertently compel her into a state of emotional silence. However, consider an alternative perspective. What if her withdrawal isn't a consequence of a perceived absence of affection? What if her retraction is a direct result of not feeling sufficiently secure to engage in her own pursuit of you? For here lies the fundamental truth. The feminine principle only engages in pursuit when the masculine principle successfully evokes one singular, specific emotion. It is not the desire for approval, nor the magnetic pull of attraction, nor the need for validation. Instead, it is something primordial, an ancient sentiment that has largely been forgotten within the landscape of contemporary relationships. Once this profound emotion is awakened, her rational thought processes cease. She transitions from intellectual analysis to visceral feeling, and she gravitates towards you with an undeniable force. Not because she feels any external compulsion, but because her very soul prohibits any other course of action. Consequently, the pressing questions arise. What precisely is this singular emotion, and why is its presence so exceedingly rare? Let us delve deeper into this enigma, the one emotion she finds utterly irresistible. It is not admiration, it is not carnal lust, and it is not even love, as it is conventionally understood and defined in our modern lexicon. It is rather this intricate state of emotional safety, paradoxically intertwined with an enduring sense of mystification. Let us re-examine that statement carefully. The feminine essence is not drawn to chaos or mere comfort. Instead, it is powerfully magnetized by a profound paradox. She yearns to experience an unwavering sense of security within the enigmatic depths of your being. She does not desire to be controlled, nor to be confined or relentlessly analyzed. Instead, she seeks to be profoundly held, while simultaneously retaining a sense of wonder about the very dimension in which you exist. She craves the exhilarating thrill of your inherent unpredictability, yet without the debilitating anxiety of potential abandonment. She desires your distinctive edge, but only if it is meticulously enveloped within a framework of consistent emotional stability. This delicate equilibrium is exceedingly uncommon, which precisely explains why so many women quietly disengage. They cease verbal communication. They discontinue sharing their inner world. They stop extending themselves. This cessation is not due to a lack of care, but rather because the crucial emotional polarity has been fractured. She no longer perceives that paradox, that intoxicating oscillation between intellectual curiosity and profound calm, between a perceived sense of danger and unwavering devotion, because it is precisely this intricate interplay that triggers her inherent chase. The precise moment she experiences sufficient safety to be utterly vulnerable, yet simultaneously remains curious enough to genuinely explore the essence of who you are, not merely what you offer, nor what you articulate, but the profound truth of your being in silence. That is what truly stirs her heart. It doesn't merely quicken her pulse, It compels her into a state of complete surrender and motion. What transpires when she no longer perceives this vital dynamic? If you are deficient in this crucial energy, if you become excessively predictable, overly needy, or too rigid in your approach, you might still retain her physical presence, but you will inevitably lose her emotionally. She will remain physically proximate, but she will not engage in pursuit. She will offer polite nods of acknowledgement, but she will not lean in for deeper connection. She will participate in conversations, but an indefinable void will persist. And regardless of the extent of your efforts or contributions, the depth of the connection will stagnate. This is because the feminine principle is not intrinsically wired to engage in pursuit out of a sense of obligation. She pursues when her nervous system intuitively perceives something beyond rational explanation, a profound sense that you are fundamentally distinct from others. That in a world populated by men who relentlessly crave external validation, you have achieved an internal reconciliation with your own intrinsic shadow. You are not enslaved by her approval. You are not actively pursuing her. Instead, you are extending an invitation for her to enter a profoundly unique space, one she has never before encountered. A space characterized by deep, unwavering presence. A space infused with gentle yet potent power. A space where she is liberated from the burden of performance, and when she experiences this profound sense of being, her defenses gradually melt away. Not instantaneously, but slowly, subtly, akin to the gradual dissolution of snow into the advent of spring. It is at this juncture that her curiosity resurfaces. Not the overt, boisterous kind, but a quiet, introspective curiosity. The kind that causes her to replay the sound of your voice in her mind, to meticulously observe your moments of stillness, and to experience your absence not as a form of abandonment, but as an intriguing mystery. It is then that she commences her pursuit of you, not as a calculated strategy, but as an undeniable emotional hunger, the masculine anchor. Jung posited that every individual inherently possesses both masculine and feminine energies. However, within the context of relationships, it is the dynamic interplay of polarity that serves as the fundamental fuel for attraction. You and your grounded masculine essence are not intended to engage in emotional pursuit. Your inherent purpose is to hold, to anchor, to invite. You are the architect of the psychological container, the energetic field within which the relationship unfolds. And within that field, if it is pristine and authentic, she will spontaneously begin to dance. Not under duress, but because the stage feels inherently safe, and your silence resonates with a profound vitality. You have no need for pre-rehearsed lines. You have no need for manipulative tactics. You have no need to impress her. What you require is depth, a depth that is cultivated through periods of solitude, forged through experiences of pain, refined through encounters with failure, and solidified through profound silence. She possesses an innate ability to sense when you have truly confronted yourself, when you have traversed through metaphorical fire, and when your attention is not hyper-focused solely on her, but rather directed towards universal truth. It is at this precise moment that she feels undeniably magnetized, because her response is not to your outward actions. Her response is to your intrinsic essence. And that essence, if it is whole and integrated, will awaken the one emotion she is utterly incapable of resisting: safety within your mystery. What unfolds subsequently? There arrives a pivotal moment when she finally perceives it. Not your spoken words, nor your deliberate gestures, but that fleeting second where you simply exist without any inherent agenda or reaching out. That is when the true connection commences. She leans in, poses more profound questions. Her laughter lingers a little longer. She prolongs her stay a little later, and you sense it. Not through her direct compliments, but through the intrinsic frequency of her presence. She is no longer engaged in analytical scrutiny. She is absorbing. She is no longer merely an observer. She is undeniably drawn, not because you pursued her, but because she finally experienced something she could not rationally explain. A man she can unequivocally trust, yet simultaneously remain profoundly mystified by. Let us delve further into the scenario where she once again withdraws. Even when, outwardly, Everything appears to be progressing optimally. What does this signify? And how should you appropriately respond? You are about to discover the answers. She withdrew. Not because you failed in some capacity, but because her heart necessitated space to process and feel. This is the exact moment where the majority of men succumb to panic. They meticulously dissect her silence. They replay every text message, every subtle gesture, every fleeting glance. And in this frantic analysis, they inadvertently suffocate the very emotion that initially drew her in. Understand this. The feminine principle does not merely pursue consistency. She pursues emotional contrast. The instant you disrupt that delicate rhythm, by pursuing her when she is retreating, by demanding her energy when she is in a state of rest, by forcing clarity when she is immersed in chaos, you irrevocably fracture the inherent magic of the connection. The unvarnished truth is this: her withdrawal is not a personal rejection. Rather, it represents her subconscious assessment of the emotional container you provide. She is, in essence, testing its resilience. Can you remain steadfast and composed even when she becomes elusive? Can you sustain your presence and attentiveness even when her emotional state transforms into a tempest? Can you maintain unwavering trust in the bond you share, even when the emotions circulating feel disorienting and contradictory? This particular threshold is one that the majority of men seldom manage to cross. Upon perceiving her distance, they instinctively rush to rectify the situation. This impulse stems not from a place of genuine affection, but from an underlying current of fear, specifically the fear of losing her, the fear of failing in the relationship, or the fear of being utterly forgotten. What these men fail to grasp, however, is that this precise moment is the crucible in which the polarity of the relationship is definitively established. This determination occurs not during periods of intense connection and high spirits, but within the profound stillness of the void that emerges when she pulls back. Your reaction to her silence communicates infinitely more to her than any words you might have uttered in her immediate presence. When she retreats into herself, your imperative is to remain firmly rooted. Carl Jung, the renowned psychologist, posited that every act of withdrawal carries symbolic weight, signifying a return to one's inner self. This retreat is not always an attempt to escape from you, but often a necessary journey to rediscover herself. Consequently, if you pursue her during this period of internal exploration, you are not engaging with her soul. Instead, you are disrupting a crucial phase of her personal initiation. She is not implicitly requesting that you resolve her emotional turmoil. Instead, she is silently posing the question, can I depart and still feel secure enough to return? This is precisely where your grounded masculine energy transcends mere theoretical understanding and becomes a palpable reality. You must refrain from resorting to manipulative tactics. You should not attempt to induce guilt in order to foster closeness. You must not beg, plead, or engage in lecturing. Instead, you must do something profoundly more uncommon. You must trust in her individual journey, because at her core, the feminine archetype yearns for one thing above all else: to be in the company of a man who does not vanish when she does, a man who maintains an energetic presence even when he is physically absent, a man whose emotional equilibrium does not crumble simply because her own emotions are surging and overwhelming. It is in this context that she comes to a profound realization. You are not another source of past pain. You are not merely a boy inhabiting a man's physique. You are not a deceptive storm masquerading as a beacon of safety. You embody stillness, even amidst the clamor of thunder. She is observing, though not overtly. Do not be deceived by her quietude. In those moments when you perceive her as distant, she is critically assessing. Her focus is not on your spoken words, but on your emotional demeanor. Is he panicking? Is he attempting to reassert control or power? Is he collapsing under the burden of confusion? Or is he breathing deeply, allowing her the necessary space, yet without abandoning his own sense of self? If she perceives that you have remained present without intruding upon her space, she begins to experience a rare and valuable sensation: safety in your absence. It is at this juncture that the dynamic of the chase reawakens, because now she is not merely drawn to the way you make her feel when you are physically close. She is captivated by the distinct feelings she experiences when she merely contemplates you. The sense of softness, the unwavering groundedness, the liberating absence of control. This particular feeling, this profound emotional recall, possesses far greater potency than mere superficial attraction. Her nervous system now possesses tangible evidence that you are fundamentally different from all others. This is not because you declared it, but because you demonstrated it through your actions during the most critical moments. Cease the endless explanations. Begin the process of embodiment. Most men instinctively attempt to mend a strained connection through verbal communication. They dispatch lengthy messages, pose incessant questions, and press for immediate answers. However, what they fail to comprehend is that the feminine consciousness does not retain your logical arguments. It remembers your vibrational essence, not what you articulated in words, but how your energy registered within her nervous system. Therefore, when a sense of disconnection arises, do not endeavor to verbally coax her back into love. Instead, guide her back into a state of safety. Achieve this not through pressure, but through profound embodiment. Embody an air of mystery without descending into chaos. Embody profound depth without succumbing to depression. Embody unwavering strength without resorting to domination. Embody love devoid of fear. These are the qualities to which she will ultimately return, not to an idealized fantasy of you, but to the visceral sensation of your authentic self. That sensation alone is what she will relentlessly pursue. Once again, we encounter the feminine trust test. Every woman, regardless of how independent she may be, will at some point instinctively test the connection. This is not done with malicious intent or as a manipulative game, but as an inherent instinct. She fundamentally needs to know, will you maintain your grounded composure when she becomes as unpredictable as the wind? Will you remain emotionally warm when her demeanor turns cold? Will you stay steadfast and still when she unleashes her emotional storms? Because if the answer to these questions is unequivocally yes, then something profoundly transformative occurs. Her defenses soften, her emotional armor dissipates, and instead of retreating, she begins to move towards you with clear intention, with profound vulnerability, and with that emotion Jung described as anima recognition, an unspoken, intuitive understanding that this man is not merely safe, but profoundly magnetic. This is because he doesn't just touch her physical being, he awakens a deep-seated soul memory within her, and then she initiates engagement anew. She reaches out not in a casual or performative manner, but from a place of genuine curiosity. She inquires about your well-being. She expresses a desire to see you. She lingers longer in conversations, not because you pursued her, but because your silence communicated more eloquently than any words you could have uttered. She felt it, in the way you did not falter, in the way you did not crave validation, in the way you remained true not to her, but to the depths of your own being. It is at this point that she realizes you are not enslaved by an addiction to her. Instead, you are devoted to truth. And this, she understands, is the most secure place she has ever encountered. However, this is not the ultimate conclusion. There exists a more shadowed facet to the feminine response, a hidden trigger that compels her to pursue with greater intensity, only to experience an emotional collapse thereafter. What precisely is this trigger, and how can one effectively circumvent it? Let us delve into that next. Occasionally, she may rush towards you, but not out of genuine trust. Her pursuit is driven by the activation of her emotional addiction. This is not the healthy gravitational pull of genuine connection, but rather a frantic, desperate grasping for relief from chaos, from profound loneliness, or from deep-seated wounds that you did not inflict, but which you now inadvertently activate. This represents the true danger zone, because if you mistakenly interpret this trauma-driven chase as authentic attraction, you will initiate a cycle of connection that, while feeling intensely vibrant and alive, will never truly be safe. Jung cautioned that the shadow frequently conceals itself behind an alluring facade of beauty. In the context of relationships, that shadow often adopts the guise of intense chemistry. You may believe she is genuinely interested in you, but in reality she is chasing a deeply ingrained pattern, and you, unknowingly, are becoming a symbolic representation from her past. She is not drawn to your inherent presence. She is powerfully pulled towards the unsettling familiarity of past pain. And this is where the majority of men stumble. They mistakenly perceive her intense obsession as a reward, but it is not genuine desire. It is a primal instinct for survival. When the chase is rooted not in love, but in this shadow dynamic, she will incessantly text you. She will demand constant reassurance. She will cling desperately, yet never achieve a state of true calm. Initially, this behavior may flatter your ego. It makes you feel chosen, validating your sense of masculinity. However, pay close attention. You will invariably begin to feel depleted rather than energized. You will discern that your presence, far from soothing her, is instead stimulating her underlying anxiety. And regardless of your efforts, her demands remain insatiable. She craves more of your valuable time, more of your reassuring words, and more tangible evidence that you will not abandon her. The profound tragedy, however, lies in the fact that even when you provide these assurances, she struggles to believe you. For the emotional state she relentlessly pursues is not genuine connection. Instead, it is an insatiable desire for absolute control over the inherent uncertainties of life. A Jungian perspective might suggest that she isn't truly engaging with who you are as an individual, but rather with an internalized projection of you. This intricate projection is meticulously constructed from a tapestry of past traumas, ingrained narratives, and deeply rooted anxieties. Consequently, no man, irrespective of his inherent stability or emotional fortitude, possesses the capacity to genuinely heal a woman who has become inextricably tethered to the tumultuous disarray of her personal history. It is paramount that you resist the urge to allow yourself to become her primary emotional regulator. Herein lies the most challenging and unvarnished truth. If a woman is fundamentally unable to cultivate a sense of inner security within her own physiological and psychological framework, she will inevitably attempt to achieve self-regulation by co-opting your emotional system. Yet this dynamic does not manifest as authentic love. On the contrary, it frequently feels like an oppressive emotional burden, a form of relational debt. You inadvertently assume the multifaceted roles of her personal therapist, her perpetual lifeline of support, and her emotional shock absorber. Gradually and often imperceptibly, you begin to diminish your own essence. You find yourself meticulously managing her reactions, perpetually living in a state of responsiveness to her fluctuating moods. You metaphorically tiptoe around her, not because she is inherently malicious, but because she harbors a deep-seated internal instability. What initially blossomed as mutual attraction subtly transmutes into an emotionally exhaustive form of surrogate parenthood. This unequivocally is not the vibrant interplay of polarity, it is the suffocating embrace of codependency. And if you are not exceedingly vigilant, she will relentlessly pursue you into a metaphorical confinement, a prison meticulously constructed from an overwhelming edifice of expectations, relentless emotional caretaking, and the pervasive dread of her next inevitable emotional downturn. This stark reality underscores why your presence alone is insufficient. You must cultivate a profound state of awareness, for it is through this heightened consciousness that you can precisely differentiate her authentic desires from the insidious grip of her emotional dependency. The core emotion that compels her to remain is not mere physical desire, nor is it admiration, nor even simple attention. The singular emotion that truly anchors a woman in a relationship is a profound sense of inner peace. However, it is not the peace that you bestow upon her, but rather the tranquility that you catalyze and awaken from within her own being. She may initially be captivated by your enigmatic qualities. She might become consumed by your inherent charisma. She may cling desperately to your perceived power. But if, in your presence, she consistently experiences heightened states of disquiet, greater confusion, and overwhelming emotional saturation, she will, in due course, inevitably collapse. This is because the feminine essence inherently yearns for the security of being able to relinquish control. And if she cannot intrinsically trust herself within your sphere of influence, she will harbor a deep-seated resentment towards her own vulnerability. So, while she may indeed pursue you, If you embody the type of man who ignites her nervous system with the intensity of a blaring siren, she will ultimately regret having followed you. She will mourn the loss of her inherent softness. She will re-erect her emotional defenses, and she will depart, not with a surge of anger, but with the quiet, profound disappointment of a woman who, for a fleeting moment, almost believed she could finally find repose. The peace test serves as an invaluable diagnostic tool. Here's how you can discern whether her pursuit originates from her unresolved shadow aspects or from her genuine self, specifically after spending time in your company. Does she appear more composed and tranquil rather than increasingly agitated? When you choose to embrace silence, does she respect this pause, or does she descend into an emotional spiral? Does she thoughtfully ponder your words, or does she merely crave more verbal input? A woman who is genuinely prepared for an authentic and profound love will gradually begin to mirror your inherent groundedness. Her energetic state will stabilize. Her intellectual curiosity will deepen significantly. Her emotions will naturally begin to turn inward, fostering introspection rather than erupting outwardly. She will not merely chase your physical presence. She will consciously anchor herself within its steady embrace. And within that profound stillness, she will come to the profound realization that what she truly desired was never the act of chasing itself. It was, in fact, the profound permission to finally cease her relentless pursuit. And when you are able to cultivate and offer her that profound feeling, without any demand for reciprocation, without any coercive force, and without any personal need for it, that is the pivotal moment she surrenders. Her surrender is not to you directly, but to that intrinsic part of herself that she had long since abandoned. The part that genuinely believes love does not inherently have to be a source of pain. It is the part that, at long last, trusts that she can experience profound emotions and still maintain her sense of safety, especially when you embody that very emotion yourself. Carl Jung articulated that the animus and anima serve as crucial conduits between the conscious and the unconscious realms, bridging the gap between our current identity and our deepest aspirations. When a woman pursues you, her pursuit is not directed at your professional status, your physical attributes, or your eloquent words. She is, in essence, chasing the unique emotional signature that you awaken within her. This distinct signature represents the vibrational frequency of your very soul. Therefore, it is imperative to deeply introspect and ask yourself, what is the fundamental feeling of you? Not the carefully curated image, not the specific role you inhabit, nor the persona you project online, but rather the intrinsic energy that resonates within your moments of silence. Are you a source of profound stillness or tumultuous chaos? Are you an overwhelming storm or a protective sanctuary? Because that intrinsic feeling is what she will recall long after the intimate dates have concluded, long after the physical touch has faded, and long after the initial surge of dopamine has dissipated. If her experience of being with you enabled her to feel truly seen without feeling compelled to diminish herself, secure without the burden of performance, and soft without the need for apology, she will never ever forget you. This is because her pursuit was not merely for a man. She was, in essence, pursuing her own freedom through her connection with you. And that, my dear friend, represents the most exquisitely rare and profound feeling a woman can ever discover within herself. But what if her pursuit has ceased? What if you perceive her gradually slipping away, fading into the distance, disconnecting from your shared reality? Is it irrevocably too late? Not if you possess the understanding and ability to reawaken her feminine core using solely your energetic presence, rather than relying on words. That is precisely the next area we will explore. You will gain precise insights into how to effectively revive polarity, even when the spark appears to have completely extinguished. Let us proceed. She is not entirely gone. Not completely. She may exhibit a quieter demeanor, be less reactive, and appear less drawn to your presence. However, deep within her, her feminine energy has not ceased its capacity for feeling. It has merely entered a self-protective state, because when a woman stops actively chasing, it does not invariably signify that she is entirely over you. It may in fact indicate that she is meticulously guarding something precious that once blossomed beautifully in your shared presence. Jung famously cautioned, "The psyche pulls away not to punish, but to preserve." And if you truly grasp this profound insight, if you resist the urge to panic, if you refrain from chasing her back out of fear, if you do not over-explain, overreach, or overperform, then something truly unexpected will transpire. She will subtly lean back in, not because of anything you explicitly said, but precisely because of what she profoundly felt when you remained silent. This is the inherent power of non-pursuit. The very moment you actively pursue a woman who is emotionally withdrawing, you inadvertently confirm her deepest-seated fear, that your motivations are driven by personal need rather than by clear-headed intention, that your previous calm demeanor was merely conditional, that your initial attraction was not rooted in profound depth, but merely a fleeting surge of dopamine. And dopamine, by its very nature, does not foster protection. It merely propels. However, a man who can maintain his rootedness, even when her warmth dissipates, even when her text messages become infrequent, even when her gaze no longer lingers, that man becomes indelibly unforgettable. This is because she will realize that you were not merely a transient source of external validation. You were, in fact, a profound mirror. Not a mirror that simply reflects her outward beauty, but one that starkly reveals to her the woman she becomes when she is not operating from a place of fear. That, above all else, is the most extraordinary and rare sensation a woman can ever experience. The profound safety of being truly seen without the imperative to perform. And should you manage to maintain that emotional sanctuary, her protective barriers will gradually dissolve. This dissolution won't stem from any form of coercion or pressure, but rather from the profound liberation of feeling truly accepted and given permission to be herself. The manifestation of her return won't be ostentatious or dramatic. There will be no grand displays, no celebratory pyrotechnics. She won't make a formal declaration of her reappearance in your life. Instead, it will likely unfold with subtle cues. Perhaps a farewell that lingers a little longer than before. A gaze that holds your eyes for an extended moment. A message, seemingly innocuous in its phrasing, yet imbued with significant underlying meaning, such as, "I encountered something that brought you to mind." It is imperative not to dismiss these indicators, but simultaneously avoid an excessive or overzealous reaction. For at this juncture, she is subtly assessing whether the profound emotional connection she once experienced with you still resonates within your energetic field. Her current actions transcend mere recollection of your shared past. She is, in essence, verifying if you still recognize the essence of who you once were. Because if, in your earnest endeavors to reclaim her affections, you have inadvertently forfeited your own sense of self, she will not perceive it as a secure environment in which to draw near again. Your inherent allure was never predicated on your verbal dexterity or persuasive rhetoric. It was consistently rooted in your unwavering self-possession, your serene inner wisdom, your composed demeanor, and your unshakable clarity of purpose. Reclaim these fundamental attributes. Do so not with the intention of impressing her, but primarily for the purpose of restoring your own inner equilibrium. She will perceive this transformation when she ultimately feels a renewed sense of security. You will become aware of this shift occurring, not through any explicit confession on her part, but rather as she begins to exhibit a softening within the comfortable quietude you provide. She will cease her habit of over-explaining herself. You will notice her pausing thoughtfully between her expressions. Her breathing will become noticeably deeper and more relaxed when in your vicinity. This phenomenon signifies the feminine essence reconnecting with its intrinsic core. Because what every woman with a heightened spiritual awareness genuinely desires is not a man who attempts to dominate or suppress her emotions, but rather one who can steadfastly hold space for them without becoming overwhelmed or consumed by them. She yearns for the freedom to experience moments of vulnerability and emotional fragmentation. Not so that you might endeavor to fix her, but so that she can engage in the process of self-reconstruction within your presence, entirely unburdened by the apprehension of judgment. Her desire is to be embraced, not initially through physical contact, but profoundly on an energetic level. She wishes to remain silent and yet still feel completely comprehended. And only a man who has achieved profound peace with his own inner stillness can offer her that profound depth of understanding. Consider Carl Jung's profound final admonition. Jung once articulated, "We encounter ourselves repeatedly in a myriad of disguises throughout life's journey." When you are intimately connected with a woman, when you genuinely extend an open and accepting space for her unadulterated authenticity, her inherent complexities, her willingness to surrender, you are not merely forging a connection with her individual being. You are, in fact, confronting your own inner landscape, the unconscious feminine aspects residing within you. And the manner in which you respond to her emotional expressions serves as a direct mirror reflecting how you engage with your own inherent gentleness and vulnerability. If you harbor apprehension towards her emotions, it is a clear indication that you harbor similar fears concerning your own. If you cast shame upon her sensitivity, you have, regrettably, disavowed the most sacred and integral component of your spiritual self. However, if you approach her softness with reverence, perceiving it not as a weakness but as a profound source of wisdom, then she will acutely sense this respect. And in return, she will blossom and open herself in ways far exceeding your wildest imaginings. This opening will not be an act performed to appease you, but rather because you have evolved into the kind of man who does not necessitate or demand such vulnerability. This is the pivotal moment when a woman transcends merely pursuing you. She deliberately and consciously chooses you, repeatedly and consistently. This choice does not spring from a place of fear, nor from a sense of deprivation, nor from an unfulfilled yearning, but rather from a profound, inherent knowing that in your presence, she is not compelled to earn love. She simply needs to allow herself to feel it. This is the very emotion she yearned for all along. It was not mere happiness. It was not simple lust. It wasn't even love as it is conventionally defined by most individuals. It was, in its purest form, freedom. The profound freedom to be wholly and completely seen, not merely as a designated role, not as a reactive entity, but as a complete, vibrant, living, enigmatic being. And when she experiences that profound sense of freedom within your presence, when your gaze remains unwavering in the face of her emotional tempest, when your voice does not falter in response to her unvarnished honesty, when your energetic presence does not buckle under the weight of her intensity, that is precisely when she recognizes that she is no longer pursuing you. Instead, she is discovering her way back to her authentic self, with you serving as a conduit. And that profound form of union, that depth of spiritual intimacy, that potent energetic magnetism, is something that cannot be fabricated. It cannot be artificially constructed. It can only be reawakened and remembered. Therefore, cease your attempts to perform. Discontinue your pursuit of her validation. Desist from forcing emotional connections. Instead, become the very emotion she has never been permitted to experience safely. Stillness. Allow her to surrender into that quietude. Permit her to lose herself within that profound sense of calm, because once she does, she will come to the realization that she no longer needs to chase love ever again. She will have already discovered it within the serene, unwavering gravitational pull of a man who has finally reclaimed his own inherent strength.